Hello, everyone. I'm John Evans. Welcome to another episode of One-on-One. You know, if you look up the word winner on dictionary.com, you're not going to find a picture of Donovan. But you should, because she has won at every level. She was a national champion and record-setting basketball player at Old Dominion University. She was a winner of a championship in the WNBA as a head coach. She won Olympic gold medals, 2 of them playing for Team USA, and 1 as Team USA's head coach. Her tough, determined attitude has earned her spots in a half-dozen halls of fame. And it all began with some of her toughest competitions, right at home.
From what I understand, my father played semi-professional baseball back in the day, and he was a tall gentleman. He was tall and thin, and we all kind of took after him. My mom was not sports-oriented at all, but every one of my siblings was. So it was really easy for me to follow in footsteps as I came up.
Did you remember first time bouncing a basketball in the driveway?
You know, I vaguely remember with brothers and sisters out there. And then what was very prevalent in my memories is when we'd get to fighting in a house, my mom would just throw us out in the backyard and like, go settle it at the hoop. So we learned at an early age how to be competitive, and no gender, boys, girls, sisters, brothers, it didn't matter. You just wanted to win.
It's survival at that point in time with 8 kids, right?
And at the dinner table, too.
And I saw a piece of video, and I'm going to go into a lot of the Olympic stuff later, but I saw a piece of video not long ago where the person who lives in your family house now actually saved the basketball hoop that you played on?
Yeah, how cool is that?
Yeah.
Actually, it's the couple down the street that I babysat for. I babysat their 3 kids, and they grew up, and they're out of the house now. And the Quinn family watched as this family took over our house, and we're getting rid of the backboard. So the Quinns stepped in and was like, do you have any understanding what that relic is and how important it is? And the new owners are just like, no, it's completely corroded. It's rusted out. There's no net on it.
Yeah.
And as they got ready to throw it out, the Quinns stepped in and saved the day.
What was that like? I watched the video, and I can see in your face how much it meant to you, but what was that like going back home and having this relic of your past be saved by somebody who you knew years ago?
You know, it's to step back into a time in my life where I had no idea what was ahead of me. You know, I was the youngest of 8 kids growing up on Manor Walk with, you know, my mother and then my stepfather, and just, you know, kind of a quiet kid that wanted to be good at basketball but had no idea. And so when I stepped back into that, you know, snapshot, if you will, with that hoop, you know, everything came flooding back. You know, the hours I'd sit out there, and, you know, I had my own game where it had to be nothing but net. So I'd stand under the basket for hours trying to get 25 in a row that didn't hit the rim, didn't hit the backboard, nothing but net. So those kind of memories came back and reminding me of how I got to where I was. You know, it all started back then.
Yeah, that's a great video, that basketball story video. Hoop Story, I guess, is the name of it.
Yeah.
And for anybody who hasn't seen it, I would suggest Google Hoop Story and listen to Ann's story, because it really, the snow on the ground, I mean, it is so small town neighborhood story.
True. And the Quinns, you know, these people I babysat for, who knew that they had that kind of memory of me as well? So that little, you know, it was a cul-de-sac, it was a dead-end street, and all the kids played on that street. And, you know, it was back in a time period where everything was safe and free, and you played kickball and didn't worry about, you know, the bad things that are happening now.
Yeah, you'd be on the street, and the one word you'd continue to hear was car, when everybody had to move to the side of the street.
Or dinner. Yeah. That was it, yeah.
What was the first dream of you wanting to play basketball for a living? Do you remember maybe something that happened that you remembered, hey, I might have a chance to do this?
I do remember it, it's odd because I'm not one that kind of hangs on to individual things, but this was individual, and it was in 5th grade. I was playing CYO basketball, and we got the trophy for winning, but then I got an MVP trophy, and it was significant for me because I never thought about myself that way. I was so happy to be on a different team outside of my Donovan team, my family team. And I found my niche for my shy, kind of quiet self into this CYO team. And that trophy kind of symbolized that, yeah, okay, you might have some skill here and you might be able to go someplace with this.
Did you start then practicing more? Did you start emulating an NBA star here or there, wanting to be and realizing that you could do this?
You know, no, I had, 7 older brothers and sisters to emulate and to practice with. But what it did is I practiced hard. It's always been my MO. I'm a blue-collar kind of gal.
Oh, yeah.
But it instilled in me a belief in myself that I didn't have until that point. I just had no idea, and really very little confidence probably. And it sparked something that fortunately stayed with me.
Do you remember hearing at all about Title IX as a child before it affected you in the way that it did and opened up the doors to your future?
I had no idea about Title IX. I'll be honest. I watched my sister go through recruiting and she graduated from high school in '77, and Mary was a great basketball player. And so I watched her go through some recruiting, a couple scholarships here and there, but very limited correspondence. And the floodgates were opening for me that next year, where I was getting a ton of correspondence, a lot of phone calls. There weren't many rules back then in recruiting.
Right.
And right away, we were all putting it together. This is the benefit of Title IX that was enacted in '77 with my sister, but really wasn't enforced until later. So it came to me early how fortunate I was.
And I talked to Sheila Bowles, Sheila
sure,
here in town.
Sure.
And she reflects back on what Title IX did for her at UNC Wilmington, being one of the first to help start that program. You don't think about it when it's happening, but you look back decades later and realize how important it was to you.
Oh, it's so true. And how important timing was for some of us. It's shaped my entire career. I went on from basketball as a player, then into coaching, and without Title IX, none of that really would have happened for me. And again, like you said, you don't realize until well after I was in college, when I'm looking back and looking at my sister Mary's career and how great it was at Penn State, but how different it was for me 2 years later. So yeah, I am very thankful for Title IX. And anytime I hear that on a news line or in an article in the paper, it's like my ears perk up right away. I'm a big proponent and will always fight for it.
Sure. Joe Paterno called you?
Yeah.
I mean, he was, at the time, no bigger coaching name, maybe Bear Bryant, maybe some of the others. But if you're from New Jersey or Pennsylvania in the late '70s, Joe Paterno was the coach. And they wanted you so bad at Penn State that they had the football coach call you.
Yeah, which is really, when you think about that, for football and women's basketball
Right.
to overlap back in the late '70s, I mean, it's pretty remarkable. But yeah, and I remember, even as a kid that didn't follow a lot of football, his name was obviously significant.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was quite interesting. My mom carried that for a long time.
Did your sister put any pressure on you to join her at Penn State?
Not at all. I think, we were 2 years apart and still somewhat competitive probably. So I remember going up for my visit there and her hosting me, but never putting pressure for me to join them.
What drew you to Old Dominion? Was it Nancy Lieberman going there?
Nancy was a big part of that, and people don't know Inga Nissen, who was the biggest reason I went there. She was a 6'5" Dane that played for Old Dominion and was just tough as nails and everything I wanted to be as a college player. And I felt like going against Inga every day in practice was going to eventually get me where I wanted to go. So it was that combination and the fact that it was far enough away that Mom couldn't just pop in and close enough that I could get home if I needed to.
Yeah. And believe me, when you're going into college, both of those things
Very
come
important.
into play.
Very true.
Did you keep in touch with Inga past Old Dominion and ever get a chance to tell her how much she did mean to you?
Yes. And I was always that kid anyway. Like when I was there and she broke my nose in practice one day.
Oh, no.
It's like, thank you, Inga. I really appreciate you making me better. So we always had that relationship. She really took me under her wing and she went on to coach. So she stayed in my life for quite a bit.
That's always nice when you can say those thank yous
Right.
along the way. When you played and got out of ODU, and anybody who wants to, if you have a large screen computer screen, I suggest you Google and look at all the awards that Ann has, because it takes a couple of pages. But when you were getting out, at the time there was no WNBA. So if you wanted to continue your play, you had to go overseas. Was that a tough decision?
It wasn't tough because those of us that really aspired to play in the Olympics, which at that time I had been on the '80 Olympic team that boycotted, so I was just a freshman, finished my freshman year in college. So I knew I wanted to continue to compete internationally. And in order to stay at your game, you had to go someplace and play with time and score. And the added proponent for me to pick Japan was that they were small and fast, and it really was going to help my game develop at that point too. It was tough being there, but the decision to go was not hard because I wanted to be better and I wanted to contribute in the Olympic team.
What did you learn over there? I mean, because you were in Japan and you also went to Italy, if I'm not mistaken,
That's right. Yeah. I was in Japan for 5 years, so it kept me through the 84 and the 88 Olympics. And oh gosh, I learned so much about actually non-basketball, more than basketball. My coach liked to put me at the high post. He wasn't sure what to do with the 6'8" player. They don't have them in Japan. So
he put you on the high post?
Yeah, he was a little bit confused initially. We ended up working it out that I'd get down low, but it took a while to get him there.
Oh, no.
But culturally, it was such an eye-opening experience because this is now early 80s. Women over there are still, not equal in any sense. But players are allowed to hit their players. Coaches are allowed to hit players to motivate. So like slap, punch. And so for me, it was completely eye-opening. Here in the States, we play because we love it.
Right.
Or there's goals, gold medal kind of goals. But over there, they just do it at a different level of passion than we do. So culturally, I learned a whole lot about every place isn't the same as the United States of America and how grateful I was to be an American.
Any point in time feel like calling somebody and saying, I don't want to do this anymore?
Yeah, there's actually, I had a clause in my contract that said the coach couldn't hit me. But when I signed my contract, I really thought it was just a lost in translation kind of thing. So there was a game where I threw the ball away just before halftime. Somebody picks it off, scores a layup, and we're up by 38 instead of 40 at halftime.
Okay.
And he comes tearing out at me at half court. He's going to hit me. And I was thinking, go ahead and hit me. I'm going to get my paycheck and I'm going to go home. And that was the turning point for me. I was like, I'm going home. Mm-hmm. And at that point, he had to kind of change what he was going to do with me. But I have to tell you, it was the best experience. Back before we had email, before we had Twitter, This was snail mail. So when you communicated from home, the telephone was too expensive. So from a young, postgraduate kid, I had to grow up a lot and learned a lot about myself in that time.
And the mail took a while, so after you wrote the letter, you had a couple of days to think about it, so it wasn't an immediate effect on something.
That's exactly right. And the first month, I remember my telephone bill being exorbitant. It was more than I was getting paid a month. So it was a great time period for me to grow up and gain my independence. And I stay in touch with the Japanese people that I played for and hope to go over there in the spring and do some training camp work with them. So,
nice.
Yeah, it's really a great time in my life. I look back now. At the time, it was super challenging, but now it really was so pivotal in my growth.
As Americans are now in the Olympics, it's the Winter Olympics, but Olympics as a whole, and you have a lot of experience with that. I wanted to touch on, with you, what is the major difference? Is there a major difference emotionally, psychologically, in playing in an Olympics team than playing in a WNBA or playing in a league in Japan or playing professionally? What is that difference?
Yeah, John, it is so hard to put it into words, but I don't think, there's any Olympic athlete for any country that doesn't feel a significant internal gauge that's kind of off the charts about what the meaning of that competition or that particular game, or even before you get to the medal round, just what it means to put on red, white, and blue and represent your country. For me, it was the ultimate, by far surpassed anything else I was able to do.
In 1980, you didn't get a chance to go. So were you sure there was going to be 84 and 88? I mean, I imagine there may have been some, I missed my opportunity.
I was so young, and what I remember is some of our older girls, that was it. That was their opportunity to compete. And just remember being really quiet and reflective of, thank God it's not you. You're young enough that if things go well and you continue to work hard, you will have another shot at it. But being very mindful of the ones that weren't going to have another opportunity.
The games themselves, more pressure-filled?
Yes. I'll say as a coach more than a player. As a player, I think you're still in the mindset where you've got so much ego and so much confidence, and it's all about the possession. When the jump ball goes up, it's possession by possession, and you can get lost in that. But I will tell you as a coach, the pressure for the Olympic Games there's nothing like it.
Why? Is it because you don't want to let an entire nation down? Is it because somebody put the faith in you for that job, or all of the above?
All of the above. You hit it on the head. It's like you are carrying, in women's basketball, where it's expectation that you're going to win gold, and men's basketball, I guess. But
Right.
that's just the expectation. Anything less is not acceptable. And for me, I coached the world championship team that won a bronze medal. And I know what that felt like, and it wasn't good. So coming back 2 years later into the Olympics in Beijing, there was enormous pressure that we not bronze, not silver, but we get back to gold medal level.
When you were in Los Angeles, 84 was the LA Games. So you were still in this country.
Yeah.
But it was, I mean, obviously it was the Olympics, but here at home. A difference between LA in 84 and Seoul in 88, going overseas, the way you were treated.
Yeah.
What was that like?
You know, and the other thing with it, probably the most significant thing was that in 88, there was no boycott. You know, in 80, we boycotted. In 84, the Soviet bloc countries boycotted.
Right.
In 88, everybody went to the party. So that was the biggest difference for sure. And a gold medal in 88 meant a gold medal against everybody. But it was, I remember going over early with our basketball team, our both men's and women's, and going to the Army base and speaking to our military over in Seoul. And, you know, you really start to carry the pride even taller when you talk to our military and you see that you're not at home anymore. Nobody cheers for the United States when you're out of the country. Not one person does. So you really do carry it a little prouder, I think.
Really? Because I was going to say, what were you treated like by the people there?
Yeah, no, nobody, you know, everybody
I mean,
likes
they may not, boo or hiss
No.
or anything, but they sure probably don't clap as much.
No, it's true. They, you know, and your opponent gets cheered for no matter what the sport is. It's just the underdog mentality, which, you know, I root for the underdogs myself, so I can't blame them.
Right. Do you remember any specific game stand above? I know, winning the gold both times has to be a huge highlight, but any specific moment, any specific time that comes rushing back to you?
Yeah, for me, because I was so hung on in 88 to make that team, and I was a co-captain of that Olympic team, and it was the worst time in the world to come into a slump, but I went into a slump right around the Olympics, and midway through the competition, I went from starter to bench. And just trying to process all that, knowing it was my last opportunity to be an Olympian, and trying to process and get out of my own head and just enjoy being an Olympian. And it's a gold medal from a team, not an individual. And yet we were playing Russia in the semifinals, and being able to go into that game off the bench and make a significant contribution, for me, that stands out. Because at that moment, I let go of my own ego and my own selfishness and got into this truly is a team, and now you're getting tested because you're not a starter anymore. And that really did affect me. It helped me as a coach see things differently as a starter and as my bench players, how to manage better and how to appreciate more.
When they put the gold medal around your neck, describe it.
I think it's indescribable. I really do. I have a photo that somebody gave me from the 88 Olympics just after they put the medal around my neck, and I'm bawling, just sobbing, tears of relief and joy, and it was the end for me, and just that I can't put into words. I look at that picture and I can feel it today, but I can't describe it.
Is it heavy? Do you automatically reach down and touch it? I mean, I'm thinking about what I would do if I got one.
You do, because it's super heavy, and it's you just covet it. You're holding it like it's a little baby because it's so valuable and precious.
Do you feel like you're part of an exclusive club?
Yeah, you do. You to be an Olympian 1, to be a medalist 2, and then to be a gold medalist 3. It's pretty special.
So do you watch the Olympics now as we're watching the Olympics? Do you look at the athletes and know if they're a second behind? I guess you have an idea of what's running through their mind then, right? Can you put yourself in their spot?
I do. I'm glued to the TV, don't want to talk to anybody. I just love all of it. I love curling. It doesn't matter what it is. I love watching all of it. And it is. I think it's because from a psyche standpoint, you know what it's taken to get to that level, and the amount of pressure that athlete has to deal with, whether they're behind, whether they're ahead. And so I'm fascinated by it and how each athlete approaches it.
You didn't look up to too many athletes, but you did look up to Iviana Semenova.
Yes. Good job on the pronunciation, by the way.
Yeah, well, I've learned to do that over the years. What is that like for someone who is obviously, when she gets out on the court, the tallest player in many instances? looking up and playing against somebody that at one point in time was called the most dominant player in the game, when many people considered you the most dominant player in the game?
You know, it's funny. You learn quick when you come across somebody who's just physically different, stronger, bigger. We played the Russians my freshman year in college, and you looked at the game tape and you looked at 9 players on the floor. You never saw me come out from behind her because she was just so massively strong and tall. So it is really unique. And again, it gives you perspective on, game plan against somebody of that height and game plan when people had to play me.
Now you played her, you played her, I guess, in the Goodwill games. You ran across her in many of the international competitions. Again, did you get to know her as a person off the court as well, or pretty much just when they tipped it up?
Yeah, pretty much as they tipped it up. But I have to say, when she went into the Women's Basketball Hall of Fame, I don't remember what year it was, but I specifically went back for that induction so I could see her. And there was so much affection between us. She doesn't speak a lot of English, but there was so much empathy, I think, not just because we were competitors, but because we were both exceptionally tall and went through a lot of things that a lot of other people can't appreciate.
Was it difficult as a child being taller than most kids? Because kids nowadays, bullying and all that other stuff. I know we grew up in a different time, but was it difficult being a child that was taller?
Very much so. I think my shyness and my introvertness, I think at that age certainly came from being so much taller and so standing out all the time. Fortunately, having 4 older sisters that went through similar things. But you're right about the time period. I have nieces and nephews now that are tall, and what they go through, social media standpoint is just so much more challenging than what I ever faced.
And because I was going to say, I'm 6 feet, but I sprouted up before a lot of my friends did. So I was taller than many of them to start with. They caught up. But in your instance, nobody really caught up.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, in high school, you're 6'6" and probably taller than many of the male players.
Yeah.
So you had to deal with that for a long period of time, I imagine.
Yeah, my brother, who was older than I was always taller than him even. So we both went off to college, and he came back finally. He was 7'1", so he kind of had that growth spurt a little bit later than most. But so my entire childhood, I was taller than my siblings generally as well. So it was a blessing and a curse, I guess you could say. Where it took me to places, without being 6'8", I'm not sure what, but certainly presented a lot of challenges. Still does, actually.
Well, the beauty of social media is, as I was doing some research, and like I said, I followed your career because we are about the same age, and I got into broadcasting about the time you got to ODU. But there was something online saying, "My hero, Ann Donovan." I don't know if you ever saw this. It was written by a young lady named Cassandra. Ann Donovan could be anybody's hero. She is devoted and loyal. She is also a very good basketball player and an excellent coach. She goes on to say, the most recruited player in the nation. After attending Paramus Catholic High School, she was 6'8". She was always tall for her age. People like to tease her about it, and she still gets mad if anyone calls her height anything but normal. This young lady writes.
Gosh.
So now, she goes in to talk about your WNBA coach, and now you know why I chose Ann Donovan. Both of us were teased about our height. I'm short, she's tall. But that's not the only thing that sets us apart. Loyalty, devotion. These are all the things that set Ann Donovan and I apart from the world. She is my hero for these reasons.
Oh my gosh, I have not seen that, John. I have got to reach out to Cassandra, clearly. Oh, that's beautiful.
I mean, that's, just because you are who you are. This young lady, I mean, that's not about me, and it touched me when I read it.
Oh my gosh, that is, and to just be completely out of the blue, like this is just beautiful, really.
Yeah. You got into pro basketball, and you won fairly early in Seattle, won that championship fairly early. Is that coaching as difficult as it seems, because you won a championship and then you still had 4 or 5 stops on down the line? Like, it's, what can you do for me lately? And 04 is past history.
It's true. It's incredible experience, and I'll carry that wherever I go. If I coach again, it's just to build a team and then maintain that. WNBA is beautiful because it's only 5 months, so it's a little bit easier to manage that and the emotions and the egos that go with that than an NBA season. I'm not sure how the coaches do it. But it's a challenge, and with every change in your personnel, with every injury, everything changes. So it's a great challenge, though. That's why I loved to continue coaching, because it's a different chess match than it was as a player.
What did the WNBA mean for female sports in this country?
Gosh, David Stern. I'll go down on my dying days and be thankful for David Stern for giving us that opportunity, for really putting the feet to the fire of the NBA executives on their teams to give us a chance. But without David Stern's foresight and Val Ackerman, who initiated the league over 20 years ago, it never would have happened.
Yeah, because you were actually in the AIAW national champions.
Yes.
So there wasn't even an NCAA for women's sports when you were in college.
That's right.
No WNBA
Nope.
for professional basketball when you could play pro.
Yeah. Well, there was no thought of it either. Like,
Right.
you didn't grow up. Like, I love that now, where girls are coming out of high school or college and they're dreaming about playing in the WNBA. We didn't even have those goals when I was growing up.
Mm-hmm.
So it's awesome that these kids now really have a tangible goal that they can reach.
You went in the ABL
Yeah.
in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
And then that's when the WNBA kind of came, I guess, right about the end of the ABL happened. So.
Well, the ABL went under because the WNBA
Yeah.
came up. And it was just, as much as we all loved the ABL, the idea was there, but the connections were not there. So again, thank you, David Stern.
Did college coaching get you ready for pro coaching, or are they two different animals?
They really are different animals. College coaching gave me just more the experience of, running clock, substituting players, and understanding the minds of players, how to motivate different people. But I was an assistant coach with several USA basketball teams. And then as a player, I played for all the greatest coaches, Pat Summitt, Kay Yao, Sue Gunner, all of them. So I was developing my philosophy, what would work, what wouldn't work from my playing days. But when I got my first pro job, it was after coaching some of the elite players in the USA national team program. And I realized, okay, this is different and I like it. Let's go give that a whirl.
And what's the key for that? Is because you hear people say it's basically, it's like herding cats, number one, but it's personality more than it is strategy, is it not?
It is personality as much as strategy, I will say. I think they're equally important, but managing egos and managing personalities at that level is super important. And again, I think, we have it good in the WNBA where it's a shorter period of time. It can be very challenging. And for someone like me that's very old school, down to earth, direct, it was a challenge, to kind of figure out and change my approach. To college, it's a lot easier. Just put it out there and put them on the line if they don't get it done. In the pros, you got to figure it out differently.
What has changed in the game since you played and since you were at ODU as a freshman? It was 79, and now we're, 30, almost 40 years now since that happened. Has the game itself changed? I mean, you still have to put the ball through the hoop. It's 2 points. It's 3 behind the line and 1 at the line.
Yeah.
But has the game itself changed?
It has changed in ability. So coaching has changed. Players' talent has changed because of good coaching and because of opportunity. But the game itself hasn't changed. It's just gotten a lot better. It's a better product now than it used to be. There's 5 good players on the floor instead of before where there might be 2.
Mm-hmm. And as an Olympic coach, is it different coaching international rules? Are they that much different? Most of us, don't recognize if there are some small little nuances. But what was the challenge in coaching the Olympic team?
When I was coaching in 2008, the ball was different. So we had a bigger ball than we did in the women's game. So getting our players to adjust to a bigger ball for international competition was always a challenge. The lane line was different. So there were some intricacies of the game that was a little bit different. But in general, much more physical game. So our players had to get used to anything goes, no blood, no foul for sure. And there were some nuances, put the ball down before you take a step to the basket. So I would say very different. I think my playing career as an Olympian really helped me coach internationally more effectively.
Okay. You are in many halls of fame: Naismith basketball, women's basketball, Old Dominion Sports, Virginia Sports Hall of Fame. Is there one that means any more than the other to you as far as being enshrined and as far as being in those halls?
It's pretty special when I go back to the Naismith Hall of Fame and I'm watching, Iverson get inducted or, the Michael Jordan get inducted. And watching that and know that I'm a part of that history is pretty special. But the FIBA Hall of Fame was really important to me. Just internationally being recognized for what I did as a player internationally. But generally, it's really the memories that mean the most. And I know that sounds hokey, but I mean, it was a very special time in my life to be able to play for as long as I did, and then to carry it into the coaching ranks, which I never in my life thought I would do. Basketball's been a very special part of my life.
And to be, represent your country, like so many of the athletes are doing right now in South Korea, but to represent your country, not just as an athlete, but as a coach, assistant and then head coach, and to have those memories that so few athletes have. You've got to treasure those. And you wish you almost had an iPhone back then so you could take pictures everywhere you went.
Yeah, it's true. And for me, it was what was really special when I coached in 2008 is all of my siblings came. So on my refrigerator is that picture after we won the gold medal of my siblings and I. So again, those are the snapshots that really I hold dear.
You got an honorary doctorate?
Yes, I did.
In 2008?
Yes, I did.
And what does that stand in your accomplishments and in your life's memories?
Well, a special place. Old Dominion is actually it's where it all really happened for me. So to be recognized that way, super special.
Yeah. What will you do as you watch the Olympics? What will you do? I know you're a competition junkie.
Yeah, true.
But what will you do? Can you just sit back and watch and enjoy, or are you rooting, or you find yourself grasping onto the chair handle as it goes through?
Yeah, I mean, I'm watching the Australia Open now, and it's like living and dying with every point. And no, I have to say I'm probably not sitting quietly. I'm rooting, and USA for sure. Anything that they do.
What brought you to Wilmington?
I had friends that lived here. I coached at Old Dominion, so we traveled here. And it's funny, our first trip from Old Dominion to Wilmington, play at UNCW, I said, boy, I could live here. And that was probably 30 years ago. And fast forward, I visited a couple friends here several different times and found that I loved it. Yeah. The ocean is super important to me.
That's what Karen Barefoot said too. When she was because she was an assistant coach at ODU for several times.
Yes.
And she said the same thing. She would come here and I could settle down here.
It's just a great little town. It's just the people are super special and welcoming, and I mean, there's a ton of us Northerners down here, as you know, so fit right in.
We have our own little part, the little section of the gym, and our own little part of the restaurant. What do you do now? I mean, are you looking for another job, and how do you pass your time?
I kind of feel like I'm in between jobs per se, but not really sure what that means. So people ask, "Are you retired?" I'm really not sure, but I do some volunteer work here, which I love. Back to working out and taking care of myself. And I travel and see my friends and family and see them on their own terms, in their own schedules, where they always would come see me around a game and have to live with me after a win or a loss. So now I get the opportunity to go see them and spend time with them. And
your siblings, do they come and see you at all, or you go and see them?
Actually, yes. This summer we're going to do our annual retreat. We have a Donovan annual reunion every summer, and this year it's going to be in Curry Beach. So they'll all be here for a week. Yeah.
We may have to get all of the Donovans together and get them around a couple of microphones and have them swap stories.
That'd be great.
That would be a blast. Yeah. Well, I've met you a couple of times, but when the Olympics came up, and I know your Olympic history, and I wanted to bring you in here because not many people have the Olympic history that you have, especially, and no matter the sport. I think when you're an Olympian no matter the sport,
Thanks,
correct?
John. It's true. I mean, it's special. It's definitely special.
Don't be a stranger.
No, thanks, John. I appreciate it.
Thanks to Ann Donovan for coming in for this week's episode. And she may not be done coaching just yet, so don't be surprised if you see her courtside again someday soon, leading another college or professional team. Until then, Wilmington is the winner, benefiting from Ann's volunteer work. All right, coming up next week, one of the brightest stars in the professional baseball world, Mackenzie Gore of Whiteville. He was the number 3 pick in the most recent Major League Baseball draft. He signed a multi-million-dollar contract, and now he's getting ready for his first spring training with San Diego. Do you read what people write about you?
I try not to. I mean, it's when stuff's put in front of you that much, you're going to read it.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't get caught up if it's a great thing about me or if it's a bad thing. It's kind of, it doesn't have any, it's not going to make you where if you move up quicker, if you play good, it's not going to have any effect on that unless you let it.
Once again, that's Mackenzie Gore of Whiteville, next week right here on the podcast. If you know someone who you think would be a good interview for an upcoming episode, send me an email, jevans@wect.com. And please leave me a rating or a review for this week's episode. If you leave that rating or review, and if you send me a screenshot of it in an email, you could be the lucky winner we pick at random, and I'll send you that WECT travel mug. I'm John Evans. Thanks for joining us for this episode of One on One.